get by. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Andrea Inokon. She is the co-founder of CadenceCash.com. And I'm going to formally introduce you, Andrea, in a second. But I always like to mention other episodes people should check out of the podcast. And some of my favorite episodes, it's interesting. I've had Ian Garlic on. I love hearing stories of founders and, just seeing some of the challenges and struggles that we don't hear, that we don't see on the surface. Ian talked about, he does kind of case stories for companies, but he talked about how growing up, he saw his dad, who was an entrepreneur, do some interesting things. Even at one point, they had dolphins in a restaurant that his dad owned. And you'd think, oh, it was in Florida. No, it was in Wisconsin, actually. So I'm not sure how they did that, but go listen to that episode. That's interesting. Also, Kevin Hurrigan, he's had an agency since 1995 and still has one today. So it's interesting to kind of see the trajectory and evolution of that agency through the different time periods. So that and so many more on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do strategy, accountability, and the full execution and production behind the scenes. Andrew, we call ourselves the magic elves that kind of work in the background to make it look easy for the company and the host. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com. We've been doing it for over a decade and happy to answer any questions. But we have a lot of free episodes on that on our podcast too, where you can check everything out from what should I name my podcast to what tools and software should I use to anything else under the sun. So check those out. And I want to give a big thank you to Laura Barnard, who founded Breakthrough Brands. They empower women, help break down barriers, close gender gaps in leadership. You can check them out at breakthroughthrubrands.com. She also played basketball at Harvard. Just an impressive person all around. And she introduced Andrea today. And I'm excited. Andrea Inokon, she's a leader in the movement to achieve workplace equity. So I see why you get along with Laura so well. Andrea, she's a C-suite executive, lawyer, and founder with over 20 years of experience in the financial services and technology industries. And Andrea is co-founder and COO of Cadence Cash. Cadence Cash is a fintech platform focused on providing funding to underrepresented founders. She's also the founder and CEO of the 1972 Project, which is a nonprofit organization focused on gender and racial equality in the workforce. And Andrea, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
Talk about Cadence Cash and a little bit more about what you do there.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Cadence Cash is it's a Black-owned, majority woman-owned financial technology platform. It's a bit of an oxymoron, but yes, we're Black-owned, majority woman-owned fintech platform that is really focused on revolutionizing funding for small businesses. And we have a focus on women-owned and minority-owned small businesses. And our goal is to help businesses get the funding that they need so that they can continue to grow and to thrive, as we like to say, on their own terms. So unlike, traditional, when you think about like traditional VC, we are a patient pool of capital. So we're really in it for the long term with these companies. So, we're not thinking about, how fast they can scale, they can grow, what our exit is like. We're here to provide a ready-made pool of capital, so that, for one example, if we provide invoice financing. So if a business has a contract, they are getting paid on 60 or 90 days, they can come to us, get that invoice, basic invoice financed, and then make payroll. They can provide, buy equipment that they need. So kind of keep that flywheel spinning faster for the businesses. Similarly, we provide microloans to small businesses for the same thing, so that they can, they can kind of grow and thrive.
Where'd the idea come from? See, your background is at Duke. Then you went on to get your law degree at New York University School of Law. Where'd the idea come from for Cadence Cash?
So Cadence, it's actually a family business. So I work with my husband, Charles Inokon. He is our CEO, as well as my two sister-in-laws, Angel Inokon, who is our Chief Product Officer, and Cheryl Inokon, who is our Chief Development Officer. And I think the idea had been percolating for years. It actually started, I'll give Charles credit, it started with Charles. He had this idea, really just starting off based looking at his own parents as small business owners. And I think the challenges that
What did they do?
So his father had an accounting firm that was based in Washington, D.C., and his mother had a real estate business. And so just seeing the challenges that they faced as small business owners, it was something that was just kind of growing in his mind. And then he spoke to myself, he spoke to Cheryl, he spoke to Angel, and we like to joke that each of our backgrounds kind of brought together superpowers, essentially. Angel she's an alum of Silicon Valley. She has worked in development of numerous products, and so she's really leading the development of our product here. Cheryl is a multi-million-dollar fundraiser, and so she's basically leading our fundraising and our development side. And then my background has been in fund formation. I worked for over 20 years as a lawyer with a focus on hedge funds and private equity funds. And so I've created fund products. I've grown billion dollar funds. And so it all really came together to recreate Cadence.
What were the pain points that Charles saw with his parents, or when you have been discussing around the kitchen table? What were some of those pain points that you wanted to solve for?
There are a couple. So I think one is, I would say actually probably the biggest is access to capital. When you look at kind of traditional banking relationships, for women and minorities, there's a couple of ongoing issues. One is I think when applying for loans, the underwriting process tends to be longer. There's more scrutiny. I think oftentimes women and minorities are actually approved for less than what they've requested. And then two, I think because of, that process, that difficult process, they're often discouraged for even applying for loans. So I think one, kind of, having that access to capital grow their businesses. And then two, a lot don't have a relationship with a banker. So, they may have a bank account, but having a true relationship with a banker really does make a difference in knowing what products are available. I think in the pandemic, having access to PPP loans. So even today, as I talk to women business owners, minority business owners, it still comes up that a lot don't have their own dedicated banking relationship. So it's a gap that we saw and that we're trying to help fill.
Is there something, when you were discussing this, a story that popped out that Charles would share about his parents, like specifically they were looking for this, and if only this existed for them? What were there specific challenges that his parents were facing when they were running their business?
I think one, we were talking about just in terms of timing to payment. I think, when we first started Cadence, the first thought was around invoice financing. And so, oftentimes as a small business, you may have a large, you may have a contract with a certain like company or person, and the payment terms may be 30 days and maybe 60 days, 90 days, and you're still hoping that people pay you on that timing. And so, when it is those longer tails, it can be difficult for, small businesses, especially where, you have dual entrepreneurs. So I think that's one of the things that we talked about is, kind of initially that tail. And then I think, just, from my own family side, both of my grandfathers were also, they were serial entrepreneurs. And so, as we were talking about those pain points, and, I think particularly around like access to capital, when you're thinking about talking about stories, one I always tell is one of my grandfathers had a dollar store in Pennsylvania. It was called Joe's Dollar Parlor, and it's a family legend. I think that he probably had one of the first dollar stores, and so we talk about if he had access to capital, what that may have grown into, what he may have been able to grow his company to, and then in terms of generations, what wealth that could have created for future generations. So we think about his parents, my grandparents, and just other family members that we know who have businesses, and kind of the pain points that we've seen through them, and being able to access capital for their companies.
There's a lot of moving pieces with launch, but I'd love to talk about, you had early customers that you really honed in and learned from to help shape the product. What were some of the learnings and feedback you were getting?
Yeah, so I think one of the early learnings actually was probably helped to lead to one of our first new products, so we started off focused on invoice financing. And as we were talking to customers early on, loans kept coming up. So people were like, yeah, I like that, but I could really use a loan. And so we actually pretty quickly added microloans as our second offering. So I think that was really one of the biggest discoveries that we had when talking to small businesses. The other was that, some of the small businesses, I think some have, incredible, call it kind of financial hygiene. They have, they're doing their financial statements. They have like all of their corporate structure kind of together. And then some just need a little bit of help in that area. And so it's one of the services that we actually will be providing with Cadence is coaching, seminars to kind of to help businesses to make sure that in addition to like whatever funding needs, that they have their structure kind of completely together and sound.
How will it work? Talk about how it works. So, I mean, it's kind of two sides, right? So there's the company who wants to get funding, and then the funders in that situation. So I guess we can separate kind of there's invoice financing and microloans, or maybe they're not separated. How will it work on both sides?
Sure. So for someone who's applying for financing, they'll come to our platform and they'll sign up. We have a pretty straightforward set of questions and information that we ask for. For invoice financing, we ask about, kind of current contracts. We get information like, recurring revenue, balance sheet. But I think what also separates us is that we're also infusing AI. I feel like AI is the hot topic of the day, but we're infusing AI to help eliminate bias from the underwriting process. Because I think it's been one of the challenges for women in minority businesses is, there's just a lot of bias baked into the process when you have people kind of making these determinations. And so we have infused AI into the underwriting, basically into our underwriting system to then take into the, kind of the standard data, some non-standard data to then help us make a quick decision. Because the other thing that we found is, people also, when they're coming for financing, sometimes they need fast financing. And so sitting around for a week or two, having back and forth doesn't really work. And so, our goal is within a day or two to be able to, have your decision, start to deploy the funding to you.
So how will the funding part work? Is it coming from larger banks, organizations, or from individuals? When I think of microloans, for some reason, I don't know, I think of Kiva, where there's actual all sorts of, it could be companies, it could be individuals making microloans. How will that part work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we are actually so Cadence Cash platform is actually going to be powered by a CDFI called Cadence Cash Equal Access Fund. And that's actually where my fund background comes into play. So Cadence Cash Equal Access Fund is a nonprofit loan fund that will actually apply next year to become a CDFI. And just for anyone who doesn't know, a CDFI is a community development financial institution. And so that's a program that is run by the Department of Treasury. And so CDFIs are eligible for funding from the government, from banks, from foundations, family offices. And so that's where Cheryl's background comes into play. So we're out actually, making those relationships, working on that fundraising to fund this nonprofit fund that will then be doing the lending to customers.
Yeah, a dual-sided marketplace is no joke.
It is busy,
right?
but I think it is. I joke. It's like it really is. I think where everyone's backgrounds have really synced up well together. Because it is. I mean, we have this two-sided. Charles. I don't know if I said his background, but he's a corporate lawyer, also with over 25 years of experience. And so, I think I love, from my background on fund work, I really love like big, funky structures. And this one is, you have this combination of, a nonprofit combined with a for-profit that's actually going to become a B corporation. Because it's actually, it's very important for us as a company that we're doing social good. And so, there's a lot of moving pieces to it. But it's, I think it's every day it's like, there's a new challenge. There's a new, I feel like, new skills that we're all developing. So it's been a lot of fun building this.
I feel like, when someone is, getting that structure in place so that it's funded with all these different organizations, you'll have people flocking to it to want to help their business. How do you put the factors in place? Like, what are some of the factors that maybe someone's not a fit for the loan?
And we have had that. We have had, some potential customers who, aren't quite ready yet. And our goal, I think, as a company is we want to try to find ways to say yes and to help people. And so, where someone isn't a fit, we actually are trying to provide counseling to help them, basically help them get ready. So, it may be you're not ready yet, but these are the things that, we can do to help you in order to get ready.
Are some of those things maybe they're not, they don't have like cash flow, or what are some of the factors that you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, some was, it was some cash flow issues. Some were, just not having their corporate records, their financial records in good order yet. Those have been the two so far, that, we've come across. And I think those are ones where, instead of just saying, maybe at a traditional bank, you might just get a no and kind of a go away. Instead our method is, okay, no, but, this is where we can help you and how we can help you.
Talk about the inequity for a second, and why do you think that is going on still, as far as, if you take two business owners that on paper, if you, redact the names or backgrounds or whatever, they look equal. Why is it that it's harder for minorities and women to get the funding they need?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is there's just, I think some human nature, some implicit bias. I think, when you have people making the decisions, people bring with them their whole worldview and their whole life experience. One example I have is I was talking to a female founder, and she was telling me how she went to a bank to get a loan to start her business. And she got turned down once, got turned down twice. And so the third time she was having some back and forth with the loan officer, and he said to her, well, your husband's on your mortgage. You and your husband have your mortgage together. And she's like, and he's like, well, we can't approve you because he's not on this with you. And so, it's been since 1970s where, women have been able to apply on their own for loans. But, just some people, their decision making is still stuck. And so there is, I think, unfortunately, there still is probably a little too much leeway in some of the underwriting processes at some banks that does still allow for, for that human, I guess it really is bias, a human bias to creep in.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if the reverse were happening, they probably would, if the husband went to get a loan, they wouldn't say, well, your wife's on the mortgage, so we need your wife on this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You do also one of the founding members of Chief. Can you talk about what you do there in that organization?
Sure. So Chief it's a women's organization that is really focused on advancing more women leaders into the C-suite. So they were Chief was originally founded in New York, and then kind of spread to different cities in the US. I was one of the founding members of the DC chapter. So I joined in, 2020, time flies, as one of the founding members of that DC chapter. And I think Chief it's just, honestly, it's a really great group of women. There's a few different parts of it. When you come in your first year, they actually put you in a group of about 10 women called your core group. And you have monthly meetings together with a kind of a coach that I guess is a chief trained coach, which they call guides. And you go through different exercises. You kind of peer mentor each other also. It's actually pretty incredible because one, you see that I think some of the challenges sometimes that you're going through at work are not so uncommon, and you get kind of support. You have like your own personal, really, board of directors of people from, different areas, different industries, to help you, just tackle whether it's a question of, do I want to take this job? Do I want to ask for this promotion? How do I frame this? It's actually a really incredible process. There's also like really big name monthly women speaker, actually men and women speakers who come in. As well as there's like it's almost like it's like, I guess, through their app, like a chat board. And so there's just different groups. And so there's like angel investing, there's groups by industry, where you can go on, you can talk to people, and you can connect to different women around the country who otherwise you just may not cross paths with. So it's really been a great way to expand your network. Actually, found my way to Laura through Chief. So it's a great, just a great network of women.
You met Laura through Chief. Talk about the process that you went through with her, because it wasn't for Cadence Cash, but just to talk through how it worked and some of the kind of the learnings.
Yeah, brand discovery. Brand discovery with Laura. So I was actually at a pretty interesting time in my career. I had just left PIMCO. I was a whistleblower there, and so it was really a time of pivot in my career. And I was thinking about what I wanted to do next. I had been told, that, kind of my career and I think traditional like hedge and PE in that sense was over. And so I think the question for me really was like, what's next? And so I worked with her on two projects. I worked with her on the launch of the 1972 project, as well as the launch of my personal consulting business. And so it really was with me with that, when working with her, two stages. First was the brand unlock, where, they go through, you have an hour-long interview. We talk about, I think it's probably her psychology background coming into play, which is a variety of questions she asks you, kind of, things she goes through with you. And then they actually ask you for at least 5 people to go and speak to you about you, to get a sense of how others see you, maybe apart from how you see yourself.
What did you learn?
I learned that people find me inspiring, and so to kind of really stay on the path that I was on, not to be afraid to stay on that path and kind of keep going. I learned that people want to help, and I think one of the things came up, we're here. People are here. Ask for help. Ask for the help that you need as you're building. And then
you sound surprised about that.
It's funny. I think, I was. I guess it's almost that thing. I think sometimes of feeling like you have to wear it all and be a superwoman. And so I think it really was a reminder to me. I think growing up, you always hear the power of your network and how to use your network, and it just reminded me that my network was there to support me. And I just needed to activate them, honestly.
And you bring some of those learnings in that process to Cadence Cash?
Definitely. One of the things as a founder, definitely, the power of your network. When I will say, as we continue to build Cadence, I'm really open with my network about, what we're doing. We actually have a monthly update letter that we send out to, really to supporters. It's really, I'll say supporters. So I think to me, the transparency, and then also networking is not necessarily a dirty word. I think I used to have a different connotation around networking. I think like you, I tried to be more of a connector. And so that didn't necessarily feel like it was a natural connection before. But I've really learned to embrace my own form of networking, which is really making connections to people. And I love talking to people and hearing their stories and, finding out, what people need, how I can help. And so to me, as part of this entrepreneurial journey, it's one of the things I spend a lot of time doing is, I talk to a lot of founders, I hear their stories and, just figuring out where I can help, even if it's not funding. I'm they may need a website developed, or they may need, an introduction to someone else. And so I love making connections. So I think those are the things I've definitely brought forward. And also just to ask, people don't always know what you need. And so I think especially as a founder, you have to get comfortable with asking for help. Asking for, sometimes it's, just a question of, would you use this? Or, sometimes it's introductions, but, really getting comfortable with asking for help.
Running companies is stressful, and you're doing it now with family. Talk about working with your family, with your husband, your sister-in-laws.
Yeah, it's funny. People always, it's when people hear that it's a family business, it's people always, sometimes we get that oh, wow, how's that going? But actually it's been going really well. I think one of the things I think that's great is, we all have different backgrounds and, different strengths that we bring to the table. And so, we all kind of have our own lanes that intersect. So it's we have our areas of expertise where we lead, but those areas also overlap. And so we work really well together. So, I think we, as a company, we value honesty, we value transparency. I think, we all work in the open. So that, we're teaching each other different things. We're, no one's ever afraid to jump in and, share, layer on their expertise with something else that's going on. So I think honestly, we've been having a lot of fun with it. The Cheryl and Angel have come out to North Carolina a couple of times. So we've had some really great in-person jam sessions. And I think as Angel said, we're going to try to plan a team offsite as well. I guess team offsite / team offsite.
Family reunion.
family reunion. Yeah. But I think it's been a great experience. Like I feel very blessed to get to work with them.
If someone's thinking about working with family, because that holds people back sometimes. They don't know how that will go. They don't know if the relationship will change. What are some challenges people should think about or look out for when kind of going through the process of thinking, should I start that business? My brother, sister, husband asked me we should start this thing.
So I would say one of the things that we did early on was we set up kind of like our mission, our values, and our goals for the organization. And I think the values in particular help drive us all forward. So like I think we always kind of go back to those. That's like, it's the core of the business. It's the core of, I think, how we all interact with each other. And so I think for anyone who's starting a family business, or honestly any business, I think that's actually critical to doing first. And then I think the other thing is also to remember, like, give people the benefit of the doubt, like the same way you would give a coworker the benefit of the doubt. Like sometimes, family history may be layered on, but to really give people the benefit of the doubt, to remember we're all working. Remember you're working together towards the same goal. And I remember one of my old bosses used to say, "Never let a small thing become a big thing." And I always thought it was it's great advice. I think so whenever if you have a question, or if something was said in a way that you didn't like, never let a small thing become a big thing. Always always talk. Always talk.
Andrea, I don't want to gloss over this, but you said whistleblower at PIMCO.
Yes.
So I feel like there's a deeper story there.
Yes. So I worked at PIMCO for a decade. And I was a whistleblower there about basically racial and gender discrimination at the firm. I was involved in litigation with them a few years ago, kind of around the same issues. I was one of the first plaintiffs to come forward. After me, there were 8 others who came forward. We sent a letter. I remember we sent a letter to the firm's executive committee talking about some of the issues at the firm, that was signed by 20 women at the firm. I think what I'll say is, I think it was a path that wasn't easy, but I think there was positive change at the firm that came out of it. And for me, I think even though it led to, I think, certain pivots in my career, I think it's actually been wonderful. I don't know if I would be sitting here as an entrepreneur had I not kind of, stood up for myself then, and kind of used my voice for good and use my voice for change. Because I think I was like a lot of people, I was a Peloton junkie during the pandemic. And there was this one quote from Chase Tucker, where he said, "Let the thing that breaks your heart be the thing that heals your heart." And so it's been something that has kind of stuck with me, kind of through this, I guess, this part of this phase of my career. And so it's led to, the creation of the 1972 project. It's led to me, joining Charles and Cheryl and Angel to form Cadence Cash. So, it's kind of something that's, I think, kind of changed the trajectory of my career.
And I'm not sure, through what you experienced through the company, are you allowed to talk about what did you experience there?
I probably will stay away from that one. Yeah.
Okay. I figured I'd ask, because it's probably inspiring of how you handled it and what happened, but I'm sure there's legality around that you can't talk about. But I have one last question, Andrea, and I just want to point people to cadencecash.com to learn more and check it out and spread the word. My last question is just on, some of your favorite resources. It could be speakers, books, podcasts, but you mentioned there was a monthly speaker that was coming through Chief, maybe some of your favorites there. What are some of the favorite resources that you have looked to throughout the years?
Oh yeah. So there's actually one of the books I read pretty recently that I love. It's Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. There's this one line in it that always really speaks to me and really inspires me. And it's that basically the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. And so I love that book and that line in particular. I'm trying to think. So for Chief, for people who spoke, Michelle Obama was a great one. Sarah Blakely. Oh gosh, I'm like forgetting people. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of good speakers. And then I'm trying to think. Atomic Habits. I loved, especially
James
as
Clear.
as I was moving from kind of the corporate world to becoming my own boss. So yeah, those are the ones that jump out to me.
I love it. Andrea, I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone should check out cadencecash.com, more episodes of the podcast. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.